Everyone knows Spotify is the place to go to stream the latest and greatest in music, but you can now also stream podcasts. Look, it's easy. Open the app on your mobile device or desktop, click on the Browse channel, and then click on the podcast section. You can also stream on your smart speaker. They have all your favorites across news, entertainment, sports, and culture. Start streaming now. Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golic look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Pro days.
Yes.
Saquon Barkley did nothing at his. He didn't need to. Sam Darnold did the one thing he didn't do at the combine at his.
He threw.
He threw.
And he threw well.
And he threw very well. In fact, he threw so well that a lot of people are now thinking he might be cemented as the number one overall pick in the draft for the Cleveland Browns. In fact, one of the weirdest things I've ever seen at the pro day, besides all the executives and the coaches and the personnel guys and the GMs, the owner of the Browns was there, Jimmy Haslam. Mm-hmm. And he was sitting in the stands with Sam Darnold's parents.
That is interesting.
Have you ever heard of that before?
No, I have not.
I thought that was very unusual. But if you think about it, that's sort of where the Browns are, right? I mean, they took the collar last year.
Right.
They went defeated. They have one win in their last 2 years. They have the number one overall pick. Now, and I think GM John Dorsey has done a really, really, really nice job in getting real players, but they sort of have to sell themselves as an actual franchise that can function in the NFL. And I think that's part of the reason Jimmy Haslam, the owner, was sitting there with Sam Darnold's parents.
Your son's really going to like Cleveland.
We're
telling
good.
You, the flats are back.
We're good.
Got a nice apartment picked out for him and everything. But yeah, you got to kind of cozy up because at this point, all the talk was so misguided, the idea that Saquon Barkley could be a true contender for that number one overall pick, because the way this has trended, especially to Trey's point about what John Dorsey's done, it's been about taking everything that's been stockpiled and turning it into material, and the core material that's been missing has been the quarterback for the future.
And I'm sure a lot of people are saying, well, wait a minute, why does Cleveland have to sell it to him? They can draft him. Well, we've seen in the past people be drafted.
John Elway.
Eli Manning. You know, that could, and Darnold never gave any impression that he was going to do anything like that at all.
To that point, Sam Darnold was asked who he wants to be picked by in the draft.
I want to be picked by the team that wants me. It'd be awesome to go number one, just because I think what the Browns are doing is really good right now. I think they have potential to be a really good team in the future. So just based on that, a part of me really wants to go one. But at the same time, if they don't want me and they don't pick me, that's the best situation, because I don't want to go to a team that doesn't want me.
That's about the best answer you could have.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the ego says you'd love to go number one.
Of course.
I mean, without question, you'd like to go number
dollars.
one.
You'd make more money.
Yeah, but I mean, 1 and 2, it depends on, like, if a team traded up that was a better team, that you would be like, oh, wait a minute, I can go to an 0-16 team, or I can go to a better team that traded up that needed a quarterback. I know I have a couple less $1 million, but, in the end, it could be a better thing for me. But again, that ego, a lot of the ego does say one. It's just going to be very interesting to me. Are we going 1, 2, 3 in the quarterback position, And then the Giants being the spot at number 2 on what they're going to do.
Yeah, and it was interesting. Sam Darnold gave us that peek behind the curtain, said he had dinner with the Giants brass the night before, had dinner with the Browns brass as well. But, I heard our own Jeff Darlington kind of call him on that. He said, you had dinner with the Giants. Like, we weren't sure they were in play for all this at the 2 spot. And we know how much posturing goes on before the draft. We don't know if they're still in line for another team to try and trade up in there. But it seems increasingly like they're trying to put a squeeze on this quarterback market up top.
Look, and I know you guys, and you are going to poo-poo this.
Yes, I am.
Which, by the way, is such an old man term. I don't know why. I know you're gonna find a lot of fault in this.
I am.
But the one knock against Sam Darnold this past season, what was it? He wasn't that accurate with his receivers. I mean, he wasn't the same guy we saw his freshman year at USC. So what did he decide not to do at the Combine? I'm not going to throw to receivers that I don't have a relationship with. So he decided to throw with receivers he had a relationship with. And it happened to rain in Los Angeles yesterday where he was throwing. It hardly ever rains in Los Angeles. I'm not saying the temperature, but I think it helped him a little bit. The fact that the weather wasn't perfect and he was still able to sling it. I do believe that. You may not.
No, I absolutely don't.
I think, look, I understand there's a difference between a wet ball at 65 and a wet ball at 45. But if there was something that wasn't perfect, and normally it's perfect out there, and he was still able to throw the ball well, I think some people are like, okay, we feel a little bit better.
Well, let me tell you, all I got to say is,
that's what you want to say?
Anybody that went to that pro day and said, this solidified it for me, he now is number one, I have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
No, if you're putting anything
don't think that doesn't happen all the time.
I didn't say it didn't, but it blows my mind. It rained. He's in shorts and a T-shirt throwing to one guy who's not covered. I mean, give me a break. I mean, and in all honesty, where I disagree with you, his problem wasn't accuracy as much as decision making. He made some horrible decisions. There was 2 quarterbacks, Brett, if I'm right, in FBS that had over 20 turnovers. He was one of them.
And a lot of those were fumbles too.
Yeah. And a lot of them were interceptions.
13 interceptions.
Okay.
And 9
fumbles.
9 fumbles. So to me, there was some bad. To me, his issue, Josh Allen's issue was accuracy.
Yes.
When I watched him play. Sam Darnold, there were times when he threw the ball and I was like, wow, he can throw the ball. And other times, what are you doing? Why are you throwing it there? To me, Darnold, it was more on decision making, not that he could throw to that his accuracy. And these pro day things, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm alone in this or not. I put 0 on these things.
Well, I just think what can happen to you on the bottom end of this, because Teddy Bridgewater had about as bad a pro day as you could ask for from a quarterback. One thing we rarely see out of top quarterbacks, and still managed to be a first rounder.
Yep.
So how much is it really going to affect you when it's all said
to be
and done?
fair, he was a first rounder by the skin of his teeth. I mean, I think he was the 32nd overall pick.
I mean, was he going to be much higher than that before his pro day? I doubt it.
He was not.
There were talk that he could
high.
go anywhere between 15 about 25. And I'm not saying it was simply the pro day, but he made the mistake. Either he threw with a glove or he didn't throw. Whatever it was that he did before, he changed it up completely. Look, I'm with you. I don't think it should matter a lot, but I'm telling you, to some people it does.
No. I'm with you, and to me, I didn't need this pro day as far as this batch of quarterbacks to understand that he was one of the top ones. I still would take Josh Rosen first, but to me, it's close with all these guys. The Josh Allen, and the inaccuracy really, really worries me a lot.
At the end of the day, for Darnold, it's about marketing yourself and finding a way to make yourself look better. And I think by not throwing at the combine and doing it the way he did today, I think he did.
Well, that's just a smart move to do if you're going to do an interview.
It's absolutely smart for the interview, and it just becomes now you're dealing with, like you said, decision-making issues there, personality issues with Josh Rosen and Baker Mayfield, and then with Josh Allen, the inaccuracy. Everyone's got something, and for Cleveland, there's so much at stake at this because you need a ton right now. It becomes a really precarious decision because you saw last year in Cleveland what turnovers and red zone turnovers especially do to sink your team.
Now I think you can find out more. Now will come the team visit.
Correct.
Now Cleveland or whoever needs to bring them in, and now they can go to work on their system, on the whiteboard, on film. I'm not saying I'm still 98% of it is on the film from their play.
Yeah.
But now you can get them in to do it your way. It's not their interview anymore at USC.
Tim Couch, Brady Quinn, Brandon Weeden, Johnny Manziel, first round quarterbacks taken by the Browns since 1999. That's why they've got to get this one right.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. We had Eric Musselman on the other day, and we asked the coach about what he told his team when they was facing that deficit, knowing they had to get back into it.
The same thing we've been telling him the first, 8 or 9 minutes of the half, Trey. We were just trying to, every time out, we wanted to try to have mini goals with eventually bringing the 22 deficit into single digits. And the interesting thing is the year before, in a regular season Mountain West game, we were down 26 in Albuquerque against New Mexico in one of the great comebacks in the history of college basketball. We were down 14 with like a minute 30 to go in that game and came back and put that game into overtime and then eventually won in Albuquerque. And, it was kind of the same thing in game one against Texas in the tournament this year. We struggled, and then the last 7 or 8 minutes we played really good basketball. But Cincinnati was just bullying us. They were dominating the backboards. They really controlled the tempo of the game. We want to get out and run and shoot threes, and they controlled the tempo. And And eventually we changed up our defense and we started pressing and trapping, which was not the game plan going into the game against Cincinnati. And you know, we left their point guards, and you usually don't leave point guards in a trapping type defense. It was a little bit unique and maybe something that Cincinnati hadn't seen in the past.
Well, look, that's just good coaching. Let's be honest.
There you
Eric.
go.
That's what it is.
Yes.
That's just quality coaching, man.
That's all luck. Otherwise, I would have started the game that way.
Well, Coach, you were coached in the NBA with the Kings and the Warriors, where, let's be honest, in the NBA, a 22-point lead isn't that – it seems like a big lead, but it could disappear pretty quickly in the NBA. Did that translate at all to at least your from the mental side that, hey, this isn't that big of a lead?
It's interesting that you bring that up, Mike, because I brought it up to my sons. One of my sons left and went up and walked the concourse because he was so upset, and his thing was, how did you even not just quit? You know, and I told him, I said, you know, if you are coaching in the NBA and you have great players, it's so easy. I mean, you think back to Reggie Miller against the Knicks, and you see it not on a nightly basis, but you see how large deficits get shrunk so quickly because of great shooters and things like that in the NBA. And I think from a mentality standpoint, I mean, we pride ourselves in our program of never quitting no matter what. We hadn't had a game all year that we lost by double digits until we got to the conference tournament, and San Diego State got us pretty good. Up until that, we were only one of 4 teams in the entire country that hadn't lost a game by more than 9 points. So we've had a lot of close games. Even when shots aren't falling, we really pride ourselves on playing with great energy and enthusiasm.
Eric Musselman with us, the head coach of Nevada, as he's got his team into the Sweet 16 for just the second time. But now you go up against, quite frankly, a formidable opponent who has more than a little luck on their side in Loyola of Chicago, Eric. I mean, listen, you not only do you have to deal with Potter Moser and his players, you got to deal with Sister Jean and what she's bringing to the table here.
I got good luck on my side because my daughter, Mariah Muss, is making a name for herself in the tournament, too. Hopefully, Sister Jean and Mariah can get together, and we'll see which good luck charm prevails on Thursday night.
A team in Loyola, 2 games, last-second shots getting the job done. So give us the scouting report on Loyola Chicago that you're giving your players.
Well, the first thing with Loyola, they're really well coached. I mean, you can tell that right off the bat. We started watching film when we got on our bus from Nashville over to Atlanta yesterday morning. They have a great point guard who's really, really smart, was a player of the year in the Missouri Valley. Their freshman centers had a great year, freshman of the year in the Missouri Valley, and then they spread the floor. They space you out. They can push the ball and score in transition, and when the transition game's not there for Loyola, they do a phenomenal job of moving the ball. They don't hold the ball. They don't kill grass with the dribble, meaning some guys pounding it and pounding it and pounding it while 4 guys are watching. Great spacing, great ball movement. And they challenge you. They're a top 50 team defensively in the country and also a top 50 team from the offensive standpoint. So we're going to have to play 40-minute game. We cannot do what we've done in games 1 and 2, which is, you know, wait till the last 10 minutes and then turn it up. We've got to play really solid defense from the opening tip.
Eric Musselman with us, head coach of Nevada. Listen, this has been a crazy tournament. Your comeback, obviously, against Cincinnati, where you went on a 32-8 stretch down the last 10 minutes or so to win by 2 is one of them. We obviously 16 over a 1, which is really either a 64 or 68 over a 1 when you look at UVA being the number 1 overall seed is a big part of this. But it just feels like, Coach, this has been one of the wackiest tournaments we've seen in recent memory with so many giant upsets.
Well, it has been, and I think the reason is there's becoming more and more parity in the college game. And I think when you think about, there's over 800 transfers last year, and there's players transferring from high majors down. There's players transferring from low majors up, and so I think there has been parity. And right now, I mean, a lot of people, that entered this tournament all thought, for whatever reason, that this year, that it was a wide open thing. And certainly a team like Loyola, a team like Nevada. For us to be in the Sweet 16, one of us is going to move on to the Elite Eight, and that's just a stone fact. And one of us is going to be really disappointed. But one of our two teams, both mid-major programs, they're going to be in the last 8 standing, and that alone says a lot about how open this tournament is.
Well, I think, Coach, the most important question really has to be, I mean, you come back from 22 down, you make it to the Sweet 16, and you rip your shirt off in the locker room. You make it to the Elite Eight. What's your plans for the Elite Eight if you make it there?
Remember, it's a family show.
I need to keep my shirt on. My wife's a little bit embarrassed, and I don't want to embarrass her anymore. So I've had my fun. I'll add a little professionalism. Try to just do the interviews normal, and have a very low-key celebration in the locker room with the guys.
Well, listen, come on, no, don't do that. we want the excitement. We want the energy. We want the Musselman fever.
Was there a point, at what point did you realize you were talking to your team and with cameras around and you didn't have your shirt on?
Well, after the Cincinnati game, first of all, we're one of 7 teams that entered the tournament that has a TV camera crew following. So those guys are with us 24/7. They're on the bus with us. They're at every meal. So they edit everything. And after the Cincinnati game, when I came in there, I had been tipped off because we didn't lead at all in that game until there was 9.1 seconds left in the game. So I had been tipped off by someone in our sports information department that I was about to get doused with water. I really liked the dress shirt I had. My wife had just bought me a really expensive tie. I didn't want any of it ruined, so I just went shirtless.
Well, you know what? Hey, that's the smart look. You were listen. That's what a coach does in pressure situations. He's always thinking one step ahead, right? That's what you have to do, and clearly that's what he was doing in that situation.
Awesome stuff.
So we look forward to seeing what happens in the next round and what the next wardrobe malfunction might be for Eric Musselman in Nevada. Coach, we appreciate you being with us this morning. Best of luck against Loyola.
Thanks, Coach.
Trey and Mike, thanks so much. And by the way, if we do win, it will not be a low-key celebration.
There you
Thanks
go.
for having me on, guys.
There you go. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Coach.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. Yeah. No doubt about it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
State Farm, Robert here.
Robert, somebody burned down my she shed.
No one burned down your she shed, Cheryl.
Oh, really, Victor? Because my she shed's burning up in the backyard.
Your she shed was struck by lightning, Cheryl.
Robert, does State Farm cover my she shed?
What's a she shed?
She turned our shed into her hideaway, Robert.
Oh, yeah, that's covered.
You hear that, Victor? I'm getting a new she shed.
Can we stop saying she shed now?
Go with the one that's here to help life go right. State Farm. Talk to an agent today.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
South Carolina head coach Frank Martin joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Coach, thanks for taking it easy on me because I couldn't run a gasser right now after running over to Building 4, so I appreciate you going easy on me this morning.
You guys are killing me talking about printers and buildings. I talk about being flawed. I got no clue right now what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, you and me, Bob. That's kind of our show. Yeah.
That sums it up, Coach, most importantly. But I got to say, before we get into the tournament and basketball and you, there was a video that was posted that I saw on my Twitter feed not too long ago about you explaining why you do not coach your son's basketball teams and why you do not interfere with the coaches who do those kind of things. And I got to say, it was one of the greatest things I've ever heard in my life.
Well, you got to remember now, I spent 16 years teaching mathematics in the same inner city high school that I grew up in, which, by the way, we used to play Cleveland St. Joe's and high school basketball. I'd never heard of Mike Golic before he got to do the radio show. You know, I'm just joking.
I know.
But, the biggest problem that we have in today's day and age, in my opinion, in education, whether it's coaching, teachers, administrators, whatever, is that as adults, we always want to question the decision of the other adults that are in authority in that moment in front of kids. You can't do that. Then we wonder why kids second guess the authority, whether it's a referee, a coach, why they don't listen. There's a 10-year-old kid trying to play in a game with a guy who's volunteering his time to coach, who actually conducts practices and tries to teach your son or daughter on how to learn how to play a sport. There's a guy making $15 to officiate on a Sunday morning, and there's 50 different people screaming at everybody. One thing's to root and cheer, another thing's to be criticizing a referee, criticizing a coach, creating controversy. You know what those 10-year-old kids do? They change the channel and they stop listening to anybody. Then we wonder why kids don't listen when they get a little older.
So I wonder, Frank, because I completely agree, and I remember when I started having kids and I was going to coach them, and my dad told me, he said, it's going to be the greatest experience of your life. He said, the people that are going to ruin it are going to be the parents. He said, that's what you have to watch out for. So as you're talking to people, and the number of youth sports out there and coaches and parents and such is monstrous, what could you say to them that could make them think about it, like take a breath before you yell something out? Is there something that we can do?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, at the end of the day, if you're going to be in the stands, then be a fan. It's okay to, come on, ref, make a better call. We get that. That's part of the deal. It's okay to say, come on, Johnny, take a charge, or, tackle the guy. That's part of the deal. We have to understand that as adults, we have the right to not agree with the coach. We have the right to not be happy with how some kid on the team is playing. If it's our child, after the game, maybe 30 minutes later, have a conversation. Hey, why'd you act like that? Why'd you do that? But to sit in the stands and be critical, and threatening towards referees, that now kids think they can do that. I try to tell parents all the time, and I speak to different parental groups and all that. Support the coach. If you don't agree with the coach, this is what I do for a living. Call the coach, have an adult meeting with them one-on-one, and express yourself to them. The coach will respect and understand. But when you sit in the stands, and I've had parents that sit in the stands and get negative, then I tell them, don't ever call me again. I'm not taking your phone call. If you want to speak to me, call me as much as you can. But if you're going to sit in the stands and be negative, don't dial my number. My relationship is with your child, not with you.
Yeah, Frank Martin, the head coach at South Carolina, joining us on Golic and Wingo this morning. Again, if you want to hear that, I don't say it's a rant. It's just a great discussion.
No, it's a great discussion. Yes.
It's really, it's 2 minutes that would be well worth your time. But we're glad you're sharing your time with us because of your expertise, not only as how to deal with youth parents, but also because you know a thing or two about college basketball. You took 7-seeded South Carolina to the Final Four last year. You've coached against 4 Sweet 16 teams still in there: Clemson, Kentucky, A&M, and Texas Tech, and you beat Kentucky. Kentucky now looks like it has the easiest road, coach, to the Final Four because of all the upsets, and John Calipari's trying to douse water already on the expectations for this team. How can this team be that's basically 5 freshmen out there rolling their way through the tournament right now?
At this time of year, there's no such thing as an easy road. All those teams are just real good, regardless of what they're seeded. The thing Cal has, and I don't think John ever gets the credit he deserves for how much his teams improve with nothing but freshmen from beginning of the year to the end of the year. We all talk about his team's talent, but we never speak about how much better they play at the end of the year than they did at the beginning of the year. And he's done a great job. He's managed those kids. Here's the one thing about Kentucky that no one, their guards are 6'6" and 6'7". Their starting guards are 6'6" and 6'7". Kevin Knox is every bit of 6'9". They are humongous. They're big. They've learned how to defend as a team. And then the point guard, I always, the young man from Canada, he's got the 3 names. I always forget his name. I apologize.
Sorry.
He's taken that next step. And when your point guard takes the next step and he becomes that guy and that leader, your team takes off, and I think that's what you've seen with Kentucky.
If you're a team that's not used to this position and you went either Thursday to Saturday, Friday to Sunday, and then you went home for that 3-4 day stretch, can that week cost you if you're not used to the next round to try and get to the Elite Eight?
Yeah, I think so. That's, when I went through it last year at K-State, I was lucky. I went through it and we got beaten the Elite Eight game. And then last year we make the run, we win the Elite Eight game. That next day, all I did was spend time speaking with coaches that have gone through the journey, whether it be like, I spoke with Bill Cowher, I spoke with Billy Donovan, I spoke with Bob Huggins, people that for whatever reasons I have developed relationships with. And I asked them, I said, what happened? What was the distractions? What did you have to manage that first time that you had that week where you get to, that place where you're in your sport, you're celebrated? And that's the thing that was interesting for me, was to utilize that day, and the message from all different guys was the same. Get rid of tickets early in the week. Eliminate that distraction from your team. And then everything else was pretty consistent with trying to create the message for your team leading into that last game, so you keep the focus about your locker room and not about everything that's on the peripheral, on the outside looking in.
South Carolina head coach Frank Martin with us again, does a great job there. Took the Gamecocks to the Final Four a year ago as a 7 seed. Is now part of the coverage of the NCAA tournament. I can't remember whether it's True TV, TBS, but it's one of those, and you're doing a great job. I've seen you out there a bunch of times. But this has been such a crazy tournament, Frank, and we've seen so many upsets. We talked a little bit about Kentucky. Who do you think is the best team still standing right now in the field of 16?
I doing that stuff last week and then watching all those teams, it's unbelievable. To see what Nevada did, I don't know if they're the best team, but that kind of reminds me of my team last year. I mean, how do you bet against those guys? I mean, it's and besides, who knows what Musselman's going to do next? I just want them to win so I can see that.
We had him on the show for that exact reason. He said, trust me, if they win again, it will not be a low-key celebration.
Yeah, what he didn't tell you is Golic and I are flying in, and we're taking our shirts off in the locker room.
Oh, my God. That could be tough.
We'll hide the cameras, then.
Oh, boy, that would be something. Kentucky's pretty good, and they're playing real well. And I'm biased because I get to compete against them, but they're pretty good. I'll tell you a team no one's speaking about. And if you look at what they did early in the year before they had to deal with injuries and suspensions, who they beat, how they beat them, and how they're playing right now, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Be careful with Texas A&M. They've got personnel. Their point guard plays gotten balanced, and it's rock solid. They got 3 pros at the 3, 4, and 5. It's be careful with Texas A&M. They're pretty good. Duke. Marvin Bagley, Wendell Carter. Those guys are just ridiculous, and obviously, a lot's been made about how that zone has kind of changed their season around. Coach K, their talent is unbelievable. Their unity, once again, another team with nothing but freshmen that's gotten better as the year's gone on. Those are the 3 teams that kind of jump out at me.
How tough is it when a team that goes in as a 2 seed, pretty high in like a Purdue, loses their big guy in Haas right out of the gate with the elbow, which is pretty wild. At Purdue, an engineering school, the students are actually trying to make a brace that will work for his elbow so he can play. But that's going to be a tough call. But to deal with an injury like that right at the beginning of the tournament.
That's when you have time to kind of redefine your team. Sometimes you have an injury for one game. You can make adjustments on the fly, and everyone kind of plays out of their mind because you got a winning culture and you can survive. But as time moves forward, it makes it very difficult to sustain if you don't have time to kind of redefine your team. And I'm a big believer, Mike. You got to be, in football, quarterback, center, middle linebacker, safety, nose guard, all that. You got to be good up the middle so you can be good on defense or offense. Same thing in baseball: catcher, pitcher, center fielder, shortstop. In every sport, in basketball, your center and your point guard. Those are the two guys that anchor your offense and your defense. Why? Because one initiates your offense and defense, and the other one finishes your offense and defense. And when you lose your center and a guy like him that has such an impact on their team because he forces defenses to collapse, which then allow the perimeter guys to make shots. That's not easy to do on short term, especially in the NCAA tournament where every team you play is real good.
Talking to Frank Martin, head coach at South Carolina, had his team in the Final Four last year, and in another lifetime was a bouncer in Miami early on. I love that story. Frank, there is, and listen, the from the college level then to the NBA, it all starts at the youth level. And we were talking earlier about the youth level and parents, but also what the NBA and USA Basketball is proposing the changes in the youth level from 7-year-olds up to 11-year-olds, dropping the height of the net down, no threes until you're 11 years old, and doing more team type of basketball, smaller ball for smaller kids. What do you think of those changes that they're doing to help prepare these kids and learn the fundamentals better?
I love it. I love the fact that everyone's trying to get on the same page to take ownership of the development of young kids. The only thing I kind of read some of that stuff, the only thing that I didn't completely agree with is having 24-second shot clocks. You can't take a 10-year-old or a 13-year-old and expect them to play with a shot clock that LeBron James plays with. You can't take a kid that age and try and teach them how to play. And, in the NBA, you play a 24-second shot clock. Well, they got special defensive rules which protect teams playing in a short clock. There's a reason why they don't play zone in the NBA. Can you imagine trying to get shots against the zone if you only had 24 seconds to shoot the ball?
No.
It'd be the worst basketball in the history of mankind. With young kids, I believe in shot clocks. I believe in teaching kids how to play with the sense of urgency that you have to have at the end of the clock, but you need a longer clock. That way they learn how to cut, pass, screen, all the different things, how to play zone and man, how to play them both. I think at the developmental age, yes, you do need a shot clock. I just think it needs to be longer.
All right. Speaking of urgency at the end of a clock, Frank Martin, South Carolina head coach, I need you to settle a debate that Mike and I have had this morning. No, you will be the arbiter, the judge and jury. We're giving you this power. Golic read a stat today about Michigan playing tonight because they won on a last-second buzzer-beating shot. Mike, what was the stat?
They won on a buzzer-beater in their last game against Houston, and it says each of the previous 5 teams to win an NCAA tournament game on a buzzer-beater lost their next game.
And I said, well, wait a minute. We had Loyola of Chicago win 2 games on buzzer beaters. They beat Miami on a last-second shot in the first round, and then they followed that up with a buzzer beater against Tennessee. And the stats and information people here, and our fine researcher, Brett, pointed out there is a difference because when Loyola beat Miami, there was actually 0.3 seconds left on the clock. And I was like, give me a break.
So it wasn't technically a buzzer beater.
To me, that's still a buzzer beater. 0.3 seconds is negligible time. So do you consider what Loyola has done 2 straight buzzer beaters like I do, or do you think, wait a minute, there's 0.3 seconds, so it really wasn't 2 straight buzzer beaters?
Okay, for all the technical people, let's give them a technical question, and then how they answer it will give you the answer you're looking for.
I like it.
Are you allowed to get a shot off in 0.3 seconds?
I believe it is 0.3,
we
isn't
believe
it?
that's the minimum you have to get a shot off.
Well, then I'm not helping you because I thought it was 0.4. I thought 0.4.
Oh, it is 0.4? If it's
I thought it was 0.4.
Okay, if it's 0.4, then we win, right, Frank?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on this one, Trey. I'm completely with you on this one. I can tell you this. I don't want to be the coach that's sitting there trying to draw up a play with 0.3 to get a shot going the length of the court. That, to me, would be a game-winning shot.
Okay, Frank, it has just been confirmed it is 0.3 seconds. So technically, by rule, you have enough time, though, as you said, good luck getting that shot off, of getting the shot off. So does that change your answer?
We ask the tough questions here, Frank.
We do.
Yeah, you know what, Mike? I grew up being a guy that looks like you, that my job was to try and move you out of the way so the guy that looked like us, it's a little shorter, can maybe get 2 yards. That's when football was fun.
That's it.
So Football's boring now, so I got to go with Trey on this.
There you go. There you go. It's my guy right there. Hey, I roll with the former bouncers. Okay?
There you go. I don't blame you.
Don't mess with us. Frank, we appreciate you being with us this morning. And again, if you haven't seen his discussion about how to handle youth coaching and youth referees, Google it, YouTube it. It's a must. We appreciate you being with us, Frank.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
It's Golic and Wingo.
Allie, our show eraser, she spent the night at the hotel near us last night because of the snowstorm that wasn't, and her car was not where she parked it. Devin, Bubble Boy Kane is there live in the parking lot of the hotel. Devin, you have an update for us.
We called multiple tow truck companies, and they cannot divulge, unfortunately, any information they have. We've made a request under the Freedom of Information Act.
We are leaving no stone unturned. Okay, just so
I don't know if you can hear that. We got something going on. I'll talk to you guys later.
Whoa.
Just Devin saying the Freedom of Information
probably
Act
has no idea what that means.
Sports Center brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. To win in basketball, you got to play great coverage. And with Straight Talk Wireless, you know you're getting great coverage because they use the exact same 4G LTE towers as the big carriers, but for a whole lot less. Straight Talk Wireless, only at Walmart. Refer to terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
Okay, so we've been sort of making fun of Bubble Boy Devin talking about the Freedom of Information Act as if he actually knew what it was. But apparently, Devin, you know what the Freedom of Information Act is.
Yeah, come on. It's a federal freedom of information law that allows for a full or partial disclosure of previously unrelated information and documents controlled by the United States.
Dude, you're
government.
reading it off a screen.
What are you talking about? I know I'm not.
We've just confirmed that he can read.
He's reading it off a screen.
More than anything else.
I wasn't too far off.
Too far off? What do you mean you weren't too far off? You never gave something to be compared to what you were too far off.
Quite honestly, it kind of spells it out in the name, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Freedom of Information Act?
Yeah.
By the way, it's an act of getting information for free.
Yeah. Well, no.
I know.
It's a joke. Okay. I just want to make sure. Look, I worry about you sometimes in these scenarios.
Which I would need because my son took my last $20 yesterday.
And he still hasn't paid you back.
No, he has not.
By the way, the Tony Romo situation of all the golfers that have teed off, he is dead last. He's 2 over, 2 for 2. But he's tied with Robert Streb, Conrad Schindler, and Mark Terneza.
Okay.
So there you go.
Good effort.
No, well, Terneza sounds a little French, doesn't it? And I have a French story for you that, Mike, you were going to love.
Okay. Must have to do with food.
Yes, you're right. It's like I know you or something. Yeah. America is doing great things. Baguette lovers in Paris may be horrified to learn that in 2017, for the first time ever, hamburger sales were higher in France than the classic jambon bleu sandwich.
The what?
Jambon bleu.
Bleu?
Bleu.
It's ham and butter, right?
Yeah,
it's a ham and butter sandwich on a baguette, which, by the way, I love.
Good.
Love.
Carbs, dairy.
That has been the most popular sandwich there, but the burger took over, right?
American-style burgers were on the menu at 85% of restaurants in France last year, with a whopping 1.5 billion units sold, according to Paris-based restaurant consultant Golic and Wingo.
That's got to destroy them. They have to be so mad about that, right?
Yep. The silver lining for foodies was the gradual demise of junk food with good quality, fresh alternatives on the rise.
In 2016, the hamburger sales were on par with the jambon beurre. Or as again, ham and butter baguette. So now the hamburger's overtaken.
Yep, there was a 9% jump in burger sales last year. That's a phenomenal growth, according to somebody whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce, from Golic and Wingo.
We beat him 1.5 billion burgers to 1.2 billion jambon beurre. Baguettes.
By the way, Steve Martin had a great line once, like you could die from speaking French because it's "Je suis." What happened? What happened? He spoke French, and he chokes and dies.
He spoke French.
One wonders whether the burger might eventually overtake our famous steak frites in France. Wow. They were worried about, but burger sales are winning. Congratulations! By the way, do you know what a quarter pounder with cheese is called in French?
Yeah, it's something Royale.
It's
right?
a Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
Yeah.
France, by the way, is McDonald's most profitable market outside the U.S. with more than 1,400 restaurants.
Think about that, okay? So they're eating a lot of quarter pounders with cheese. And over there in France, everybody smokes. You can still smoke in a restaurant in France. And everybody drinks wine, and they live longer than we do. What does that tell you?
We're doing a whole lot wrong.
We are doing a bunch wrong.
Yeah.
If all that's going in their favor. But hey, America, take that. And we'll pass on the jambon beurre.
Jambon beurre sandwiches for everyone.
They're really good, though.
I bet they are.
It's just butter and bread.
Butter? I mean, are you kidding?
And they live longer than we do. Coming up, the new CEO of a football league. Stay with us.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
Love scoring amazing hotel deals? Then you've got to get the Hotel Tonight app. Forget scrolling through never-ending lists of hotels. Hotel Tonight shows you a select list of incredible deals at hotels you actually want to stay at. And even though the name's Hotel Tonight, you can book up to 100 days in advance in top destinations and up to a week in advance everywhere else. Want to get those deals? Yeah, you do. Download the Hotel Tonight app now.
We are delighted to be joined this morning to save us from ourselves, quite frankly, by Charlie Ebersol, the new CEO of the Alliance of American Football and also the director of This Was the XFL, the 30 for 30, in which his dad, Dick Ebersol, and Vince McMahon partnered up in 2000 to try and get that league off the ground. It worked for a while, and then it fell apart. Charlie, first of all, thanks for being with us, and what was the impetus to say, hey, let's get another league going?
Good morning, guys. Well, first of all, you left out one thing from my resume, which is the graduate of the University of Notre Dame.
Oh,
there you go.
I feel like needs to be a lead story with you guys, but we'll put that aside.
It's certainly a lead story for one half of us.
Is.
I can promise you that.
Well, I felt like if I needed to win over Golic, we could start with the fact that we have a good base of education.
There you go.
So, listen, it was a math equation, really. I mean, you look at the number of people who watch professional football. The average per-game rating is 6 times that of the next 4 professional sports in the United States. So we know that there are millions of more people watching football, but what that actually, with a sort of a hidden number is that when football goes off the air, there are tens of millions of people who stop watching all other professional sports for 6 months. And that number is reiterated by the fact that there are 59 million people who play fantasy sports, of which 20 million are football fantasy players exclusively. So all of a sudden you start looking at the fact that you have 20 million people who stop playing fantasy altogether the day the Super Bowl ends, and you've got another several tens, if not almost 100 million people who stop watching the other 4 major professional sports, and you say there's a gap in the market, which was obviously bought into in large part by NBC 16 years ago, but really by CBS now because of the way in which we were able to build a business model that could give the fans what we believe they really want. And then on the other side, it was the idea that we wanted to create an alliance of fans, players, and football. One of the things that's happened over the last couple of decades is that the separation of the fans from the game and the players from the game is actually having contact. Like, they used to talk about how the CEO could sit next to the welder in the stadium, but now tickets are incredibly expensive, both at the collegiate and professional level. So what would happen if we could deliver a quality $35 ticket between the 20s? And what could we do if we put a player, Troy Polamalu, at the top of the organization? We lost the idea of the commissioner. We put an executive and a player at the top on equal footing and allowed them to build a league together. And obviously the most important thing was a year and a half ago when we started doing this in secret, that probably the greatest team builder in the history of professional football, Bill Polian, came on board as my co-founder.
Our commander-in-chief, as we call him on NFL Live.
And Hines Ward involved and Jared Allen involved. So was that
wait. And another Notre Dame graduate, Justin Tuck
involved. I'm sorry, I kept leaving out the Notre Damers. So will there be more? And that's one of the great things here is the name recognition, because we've seen new leagues start and fold. Here you have some great name recognition. So will there be more former NFL players involved in this thing?
Yeah, not only that, but over the next couple of months when we start rolling out the head coaches, I think you're going to be very surprised and impressed with what we're doing. Because here's the thing. For the last year and a half, our commitment has been to how do you put top quality football on the field, and how do you do it over a long period of time? Because the biggest thing about professional football in the offseason that has not happened, certainly in the last quarter century, is no real football people have put real football on the field. And so when it started with Polian and it started trickling down from there, not just the back office, but the front office and the weight training staffs and all of the things you need to put professional high-quality football on the field, that's what we spent the last year and a half doing, and that's why we announced 2 days ago, because we were ready to say we can do that.
Charlie Ebersol with us, the new CEO of the Alliance of American Football League. Couple of things. First of all, we are pro this because
without a doubt,
we're football guys. We like to see opportunities for players to have a chance to showcase their skills and see what happens going forward. But a couple of things. Are you concerned at all about the name?
Yeah.
Because when you say the Alliance of American Football League, it comes out as the acronym AWFUL.
That's true. That's true. And I'm glad you pointed that out. If that was actually the name of my entity, I'd be concerned. But you keep tacking on the word league at the end. We're not a league. This is one of the things you have to understand. We're looking at what the future of a sport is, right? And one of the things that we looked at was every aspect of how the sport was constructed. The idea of a league and a union and an association and a union, et cetera. You were separating the players from the game. So what would happen if you actually embedded the two and you created an alliance between the two? So we don't refer to ourselves, first of all, we don't refer to ourselves as an acronym. We are the alliance. And second of all, we don't use the word league. What we're trying to get away from at a fundamental level, we lost the commissioner, we lost the idea of the league, we lost the idea of separating the players out of the process and making them a part of it. Those are all things that really matter to us because ultimately, if we can build an alliance of fans and players and football, we have something that really matters.
Yeah, that's true, and that way you get everybody in on it. I get that. The other thing I have to ask, I feel like you're kind of the Jets and what they did to the Buffalo Bills at this draft, because Vince McMahon, the guy who partnered with your dad for the XFL, came out with this somewhat nebulous statement, I believe in January, that we're bringing the XFL back. It may be launching in 2020. We may have some partnerships. It was very ambiguous at best about some concrete details. And then lo and behold, you jump right in front of him and you actually have a hard start deadline the year before he wants to launch the new league NFL, and you have a television partner. Was that the plan?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you something. Bill Polian told me something that I love. He said, each week you go out and you play a different team, and they play their game. You can't control what game they play. You can only control what game you put on the field, and that's what makes champions. I have 4 Super Bowl champions just on the stage 2 days ago, and how many league MVPs and all pro teams. We're focused on us. We've been focused on us for the better part of a year and a half in secret. And now for the next year, we're just going to be rolling out the plan we've been building. This is no different than a Belichick team having their strategy, going out and executing it. And I think that that's what we're focused on. What people do on the other side of the field is their business.
All right, Charlie Ebersol joining us, the director, or not the director, the CEO,
the
founder, whatever, of the Alliance of American Football, and proud graduate of the University of Notre Dame. All right, few questions here. Again, we want this to succeed, but we also know this will not be NFL caliber football. So we know it'll be a little bit less than that. So, and it's going to be right after the Super Bowl starts. So is there a concern of oversaturation of football?
I think it's the other way around. I think what you see in viewing patterns and how people interact, I mean, you guys put up good ratings, and you're talking about football a lot, and they haven't played a game of football in, 7 weeks?
Correct.
So I think that one of the things you see in the market is it's not – what I want people to focus on when they think about this is what would happen if somebody put actual quality football on the field with quality people behind it. You know, when you talk about these other leagues that have existed in this period, they'd have 2 weeks of preseason. They'd have, they thought of it 6 months earlier. They were funded with a ham sandwich and a used car salesman. What we're talking about putting together as a business model is a long-term 7 to 10 year model backed by real people who really understand that you build businesses from the ground up. John Madden told me the story when I went to talk to him about this. He gave me a great quote. He said when they were forming the AFL after the first year, a reporter ran up to H.L. Hunt. And he said, H.L., did you know that your son, who formed the AFL, lost $1 million this year? And H.L. Hunt looked at him and said, well, wow. If he does that for another 100 years, he'll run out of money.
Well, what did Hunt call the AFL owners? They called them the Losers Club. I can't remember what the name was, but they all thought they were crazy for doing it. Yeah. And, of course, it turned out to be the greatest thing in the world, especially when they merged with the NFL. All right, Charlie Ebersol with us, the Alliance of American Football CEO. There is no league, so you can't call him the awful. We've got that cleared up. At the end of the day, though, the thing you're stressing, I think, is the thing that's most important. The football has to be good, because I think that whenever any other league is coming on, it's like, yeah, it doesn't look like the NFL. It doesn't feel like the NFL. So we can talk about all these other things, but if the football doesn't resemble something close to what we're used to seeing in the fall, it won't matter. So what are we doing to make sure that is the product we're getting out there?
Well, let's start with the most obvious thing. Bill Polian. That's where we start. And then from there on down, we built an organization. So our day-to-day head of football operations is J.K. McKay. And on equal footing with him as the head of player relations, as an equal counterpart, is probably one of the most feared and greatest defensive players of all time, Troy Polamalu, who I have to tell you is not only a phenomenal football player, but probably one of the most impressive minds I've ever spent time with. His buying into the idea that this league has a responsibility to do more than just put people out on a field and have them play football, but to make a commitment to the players. I think one of the things we talked about that I didn't hear you guys talking about was every year a player plays in our league, we commit to a one-year scholarship for that player for a post-secondary education, so that when they leave the game, we've got a commitment to them. For health and safety, we're having a completely independent organization build our concussion protocols and police it so that the people making money off the game aren't the people in any way connected to the medical decisions for the players. And then in terms of the actual play on the field, starting next month, at the beginning of the month, we're going to start introducing you to our head coaches in our cities. And there are a lot of national championships and a lot of Super Bowl coaches in our teams that you're going to be seeing that I think you're going to be bought into. Here's all I'd ask. You should be cynical because God knows everybody that's coming to this field has gotten trampled down. But at the same time, as we roll out information, take into account the quality and caliber of the people that we're presenting to you and ask yourself, have you ever seen this before? And has anyone ever come forward and said, I'm going to put my time and money and effort in the hands of the very best people who have ever done this and said, if they can't do it, no one can. That's the type of commitment I'll do all day. That's the type of risk I'll take all day. And the same with my investors.
All right, Charlie Ebersol with the CEO of Alliance of American Football, looking to start in February of 2019. A couple more from me as far as the game. It's going to resemble what we normally see in football, but you do have some rule changes. So when people first tune into this game, Alliance of America Football, what are going to be the major differences they'll see on the field that you're not seeing in the NFL?
Well, first of all, we're looking at safety and fun. So the least popular play in a professional football game also happens to be one of the most dangerous, and it's gone, the kickoff. Now, when you lose the kickoff, you give them the ball on the 25, that's where they start. But what do you do at the onside kick? Well, we're not going to have an onside kick, again, because it's dangerous, but also because it's not really what you've been looking at for 4 quarters of football. All of a sudden, you're bringing out a hands team. So in this situation, if a team wants to go for it, they have to take it on their own 35, facing 4th and 10. If they convert, they keep the ball. If not, they're giving the other team the ball back, knocking on the red zone.
So, okay, we did those are two of the bigger differences. How about...
So we're going to a 30-second play clock because we think the game's got to be faster. We're losing the television timeout because the natural ebb and flow of a football game already creates enough natural breaks. But also, we've started stuffing these things so full of commercials that if you just went back to the way football was 16, 17 years ago, you could reduce commercials by 30 or 40%, but we're going to reduce it at a minimum by 60%.
But that's where the revenue comes in.
That's where some money's coming from.
No, it's not. That's the thing. When you look at the professional sports model, the modern professional sports model of the last 10 years, it's not about the 30-second commercial. People aren't watching a 30-second commercial anymore. Even in a live event, you're seeing a pretty large group of people who actually pause the game for 5 minutes just so they can get ahead of the commercials. You have to think about how do you provide an advertiser with an integrated experience that's meaningful, but also how do you put the power of the game back in the hands of the fans? Because ultimately, when you look at the success of things like fantasy and all these other, let's call it tertiary groups, they're not integrated into the game. So in our league, we're fully integrating fantasy and gameplay for the fans into the broadcast. While you're watching on the Alliance app, you're able to play along, and we're giving multiple touch points for the fan to interact directly with our partners and directly with the game itself. The 30-second commercial is an antiquated idea that has not translated the way that everyone thought it would in the modern era. So the idea of stopping a game down so people have to watch a 30-second commercial about some product that is not how the modern consumer experiences a brand is really just antiquated thinking. It's not a good way to get revenue.
This is interesting.
It is interesting because there's a whole lot of advertisers out there that seem to be paying a lot of money to do that right now. But I want to get to the other question. A lot of these
Mike,
guys.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
You guys don't go to commercial very often. You guys say commercial out loud. You talk about
actually, we go to commercial quite a bit. To be perfectly honest with you, we do.
Well, hold on. Hang on. What I'm saying is there's a distinction. You have laws that require you to do certain commercial breaks, et cetera. But what I'm saying is now the modern commercial is moving, particularly in radio, is moving more towards you guys doing it yourself in voice, so it feels like it's a part of the show.
Gotcha.
So they're hearing you do it. Gotcha. What I'm saying is that if you were building a league from scratch, and this is where Bill and I started with this business, if you're building a business from scratch, what would you eliminate that is from the past so that you can get to the future? And our business model, and let's not lose sight, I've been doing this for a year and a half in secret with some of not only the best business partners in terms of investors and strategic minds, but also on the other side, I'm doing this from a backbone of understanding that the core principle here is how do you deliver better football? I've listened to you guys for years, independently and now together, and what I hear constantly is the games have gotten too long. We're going to too many commercials. I mean, there's 70, 75 commercial units in a football game today. That's a lot of time people are spending. That's 35, 40, 45 minutes of a game that you're in a commercial from a TV timeout. Never mind the natural break and stoppage of a game.
All right, Charlie, I want to ask just one last quick one. I know we want to get you on again to keep talking about this.
Absolutely.
One about players, like players that want to get back into the NFL. Like if you sign up in Canada, it's a 2-year deal and you have to wait that 2 years. What will it be for your players? Because your season will end before the off-season program begins. Will players have the flexibility to play in your league and then sign with NFL teams?
Our contracts have one unique thing. It's called an NFL out. If you play in our league and you earn a shot to go back, look, Kurt Warner's my dream situation.
Right. There you go.
A guy comes along out of a grocery shop and kills it in our league and then moves over to the NFL and becomes an MVP and a Super Bowl MVP. What that suggests to me is we're looking for a symbiotic, complementary relationship. Think of us as the Premier League to the MLS or vice versa. That players are able to move in between because we're from February to April. We're from the day after the Super Bowl until the last week of April. And if you check your calendar, you'll recognize what that looks like relative to our friend in the fall. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important, is that it's not just about putting the best people on the field. It's about recognizing what's best for the players and the fans. And we fully are committed. And this is, again, why I put Troy Polamalu at the top of this entity. We are fully committed to the idea that there are 28,000 Division I players who love playing the game and only 1,700 professional football jobs in the United States. And that if I told you that in any other industry, in any other sport, by the way, every other sport does it, you would say someone should come along and do this. And that's true. Someone should, but it better be someone who knows what they're doing. And I believe that we've put together an alliance of people who really know what they're doing.
Well, it certainly sounds like you thought this through, and we'd love to keep talking with you, but we got to go because we got a commercial we got to get to. Charlie, we appreciate you being with us, and we wish
you won't have to do that in my league.
We wish you all the best, and we'll continue this conversation.
Yes, we will.
We have to get to these commercials, but before we get to that commercial, we got to do the commercial you're talking about, which is us reading about it in our authentic voice. So take care of it.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. Make sure to subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, and to listen every weekday morning at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and the ESPN app.